Hey guys, Prowl 1701, and today we're going to talk about Evil of the Daleks. So, I have not watched Evil of the Daleks in a minute, and I did a fan vote. This was actually voted on by my patrons and my YouTube members, as they do get to vote in polls, for a story for me to review, and Evil of the Daleks won. And I decided to watch the black and white animation with the surviving episode 2. I like the color animation as well, but I wanted to go the black and white animation route because I wanted to watch the surviving episode 2. And of course, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And interestingly, on this watch through, because there are times I feel like Evil of the Daleks, maybe you could have done it in 6 episodes. But this watch through convinces me it needed to be 7 episodes because it really takes place in 3 different locations. You have episode 1 taking place in like 1966, the current day at the time it was made. And then episodes 2, 3, 4, 5, and the first part of 6 take place in like 1866, right up in there, in an old Victorian style house, with most of episode 6 and 7 taking place on Skaro. So you really have kind of 3 different acts going on here with this story location-wise. And that kind of keeps it from running long in the tooth for me. Also, the animation is very good. This is one of the best animations. For me, the weakest animated episode is episode 1. Like, I wonder if they had to rush it, maybe because it was just the only one in that current day locale. Like when I was watching the first episode, I was sitting here noticing how, to me, some of the movements weren't as fluid as I remembered the story being. And I'm wondering, because I was sitting there thinking, is this animation just not as good as I remember it being? Episode 1 was the roughest, though. And then I moved into the live action episode 2, which I loved. I'll get to that in a minute. And then I moved into the animation of episode 3. And from the animation from episode 3 on was great. Absolutely fluid. Everybody moved well. Even the sword fight between Jamie and the other guy, I thought, for the budget of that animation, was pulled off very well. The likenesses are mostly good. I really like Victoria's likeness a lot. Jamie's likeness is good. The Doctor's is usually good. When he's in the side or the front, it's almost perfect. When he's in that kind of, when he's what in theater we call cheating, when he's cheating, kind of at that 45-degree angle, it's good, but not perfect. It's not as good as, say, Macroterra's, but it's fine. But there's also a lot of times in this one, more so than most of the stories, when the Doctor is looking straight on at the camera like I am with y'all. That animation for straight on is so good for Troughton. They nail that so well. I was really impressed. Victoria's dad is done really well. But the kind of mad professor guy, I don't like him because he doesn't quite fit the surviving footage for me, because he looks a little too regal. He looks kind of like a wealthy man. The way they do his hair, it looks a little more wealthy, plantation owner-y type. Whereas in the surviving episode, he's more hairy. Like his hair is just kind of everywhere and wild, and his glasses are a little crooked. So in the animation, he looks a little more like rich Colonel Sanders. Whereas in the actual episode, he looks like a cross between Doc Brown from Back to the Future and a hobo. And I like that little more wild look he has, because it really does fit his personality more, honestly. It really fits his personality a lot more. Especially when you see kind of how his character progresses in the story. That kind of harried look fits him better than what the animation does. But it's a minor nitpick. I mean, it did bother me, but it's fine. It would have been probably hard to animate his hair the way I wanted. It's much easier probably to do it like that. Also, I hate the fact that he never really smokes his cigar. He mostly just carries it around the animation. I did notice this time, there's a couple times he puts it in his mouth, like maybe he's puffing on it. It just looks like it's never lit. Where in the surviving episode, you actually see him using it a bit. But, I mean, of course they can't do that now because smoking is bad. I mean, smoking is bad, but smoking is bad. But there are a couple times I noticed he puts it in his mouth. Most of the time, he's just kind of carrying it, which is a little annoying to me. But again, it's just that minor little nitpick. The surviving episode 2 is so good and really makes me wish more of this story survived. Troughton's performance is so good here. The little things he does with his facial expressions. And my go-to will always be that scene when they're in the laboratory and they're explaining about their masters, and the Doctor is slowly figuring out it's the Daleks. And it's the look on Troughton's face as it's going. Like, we were experimenting with static, and he's like, static? Static? Wait, you said static? And then they made us steal your box so you would come get us. They gave us your likeness. They knew about me. You know, the way Troughton is doing all that is just gold and shows why he is so good in that role, and animation just cannot capture that. And so when the Dalek finally comes through the door and is like, now do you understand? By then, Troughton's just like, oh yes, oh yes. You know, his performance is so amazing. And then that bit when he's like, I will not be your slave. I love that. And what do you want with Jamie? The animation just cannot capture that. Also, the performances, again, from the kind of mad scientist guy and Victoria's dad, you know, their actors are doing good jobs with those roles. And I like a few of the little things that you see in this that I wonder if the other episodes originally had too. Like, I love the bit in the shop at the beginning when the Doctor's telling Jamie not to knock over anything, and then he immediately bumps something, and Jamie has to catch it and bring it up, and Jamie just gives him that look like, you know, you probably could have lost that in the animation. Like, I know telesnaps exist from this episode, and I'm sure they reference at least look at the telesnaps to go, okay, this kind of happened. But I've never watched the telesnap reconstruction of Evil, so I don't know how detailed the telesnaps are. Maybe I should do that at some point. And then, or have I watched? I don't think I watched the telesnap for Evil. Now I'm wondering. And then when that locked door opens and the Doctor, Jamie, and the other guy with him are about to go through, Jamie's worried the guy might bolt, so he just looks back and grabs the guy's arm and pulls him with him. Those little things that you could lose in the animation that just make episode 2 pop. I loved episode 2. As I was getting at the end of episode 2, I was worried I was going to be a little deflated about having to go back to animation. But to be fair, I wasn't. The animation, especially since the animation, again, for episode 1 looked the roughest of all of them. And by roughest, I just mean it seemed like it was a little rushed with character movement. But when I started watching episode 3 through 7, I was fine. I didn't sense that big sense of loss I thought I was going to. Certainly, I would love to have more of the story existing. But the animation was good enough that I didn't really feel that pain of loss. I was able to watch the rest of the story after episode 2 and still enjoy it immensely. I absolutely really like that. I like the backgrounds. I like the character models. And then I just like the story. Again, David Whittaker writes the Daleks better than anyone, I strongly suspect. I feel like he understands the Daleks even better than Terry Nation, which I figure for Terry Nation they were more just a weight of money anyway. David Whittaker seemed to really get just how evil and power-hungry and manipulative the Daleks were, and what their ultimate goals were. There's only one important life, Dalek life, you know, stuff like that. Turning people into Daleks, basically, was pretty interesting, which, of course, we would see revisited later, even in Modern Who. I like the Dalek voices in this one a lot, too. Power and Evil has some of my favorite Dalek voices. I love the Dalek voice, just that mechanical sound of them. But I also love the human factor Daleks. Oh my God, I love the human factor Daleks. They're adorable. They're like stuffed teddy bears. They're adorable. I love the human factor Daleks. I'm always like, oh, when they're on screen. And it's amazing to me that just changing the Dalek voices so slightly can change them so much. The fact they can go from menacingly cold and evil to just adorable and sweet. Lizzie, Daleks, train, friend. We have to go now, friend. Jamie. I love the human Daleks. I absolutely adore them. I'll come back to them in a minute. There is one thing about this episode. It's fun story time. Headcanon, fun story time. And kind of like Frank the Dalek. Some of you heard me talk about Frank the Dalek. I have a new one. I love the scene in episode 2 when that one Dalek is first interviewing Victoria, the first time we see Victoria. And that one Dalek has got to be the most annoyed Dalek I have ever heard. He just seems like he does not want to be there. I call him Steve. This is Steve the Dalek for me, and I love Steve. He's awesome. Because he seems like he really does not like humans and does not want to be there. Like the way he looks at her and he's like, stand up, move over there, move. Like the second she takes too long, he's like, move. Now, stand back over there. Okay, get back over here. Move. He seems so annoyed. So annoyed to be there. It's like he did not want that duty. He really does strike you as that one guy who was supposed to be off that day, but got called into work, and just his luck, it's like the busiest work shift ever. And you're like, I'm not even supposed to be here today. I'm not even supposed to be. That's the attitude Steve has. I love that. It's like they were drawing straws to find out who would have to watch Victoria. And he drew the short straw, you know, with his plunger. And I just picture him looking at it like, son of a... It's like Steve's just having a bad day. I just love how, like that whole bit, I can't remember the whole scene. I think there's one bit, like right as he's leaving too, he turns around and says something to her. He's like, don't move. I can't remember. Eat or you will be fed. I was laughing the whole time. I love Steve. He's awesome. Steve the Dalek, the most annoyed Dalek ever. He kind of reminds me of that one Dalek from The Chase when they're getting ready to attack the Metronoids or whatever they're called. You know, and they're getting ready to go attack them, and that other Dalek is like, wait, what if we don't succeed? And the lead Dalek gets offended. He's like, we will succeed. We are the Daleks. We will. He reminds me of that Dalek. Except that Dalek doesn't strike me as annoyed. That Dalek strikes me as highly offended. We're the Daleks. What do you mean we might not be able to do it? He just seems offended by that. Get to the back of the line. This Dalek, Steve, just seems annoyed. And I love the fact that in the third episode, which is animated, when they're moving Victoria, the Dalek moving her seems so much nicer. It's like she filed a complaint with Dalek HR. Like she didn't like Steve, so she filed a complaint with Dalek HR, which is probably about as effective as human HR, honestly. And Dalek HR had to have a talk with Steve. Now, Steve, you can't be so mean and impatient to our prisoner. Steve's probably like, we're going to exterminate her anyway. It's what we do. And Dalek HR is like, well, I know we're going to exterminate her, Steve, but we're not going to do it yet. And until then, you have to treat her nice. So be nice. Now, we're going to suspend you for a couple days, Steve. And Steve's over there going... And so instead, they send in like another Dalek that's like nice. Because you'll notice that... that one Dalek that's escorting her, it's like, it's moving her along, but it's nice about it. Like that Dalek's like, okay, come on, pick up your stuff. We're moving. Come on, move. Move. You know, it's being like really nice with her. It's like the nicest you've ever seen a Dalek be when it's not trying to manipulate somebody. Because it doesn't need to manipulate Victoria, but it still seems like it's being patient with her. And I just love the tonal shift between those two scenes so much. There's another scene, I think it's when the Dalek that makes Kimmel carry Victoria to Skaro, that also strikes me as Steve. He's not quite as annoyed as he is in episode 2, but he's still like, take her through the portal. Move! It's like Steve after he was gotten onto by HR. And he's trying a little harder, but he's still thoroughly annoyed. So he's doing a little better, but he's still not quite there. So I'm convinced that one who's having Kimmel carry Victoria through is also Steve. He's trying. And then I love the one scene with one of the human factor Daleks. When the Dalek, I think it's one of the Black Dome Daleks, is telling all the workstations to shut down. It's like, shut down, stop all operations, shut down. It's getting ready to move off, and that one Dalek's like, why? Did you see that Black Dome Dalek turn his head around? Who said that? Who said that? Who questioned that? I love that. I love that. The fact there's that pause. That black dome Dalek like stops. He turns his head around like, what the did they just say? And then goes, who said that? Who questioned why? I don't know why I find that so hilarious. It's like the Dalek is just shocked. Like, wait, what? And then you also see that again with one of the human factor Daleks. When it's wandering the hall, looking around, it looks so adorable doing it. And you see that black Dalek that's going this way, and it notices the human factor Dalek. And it's going this way, and you see the eye stalk pan over, and it kind of watches it for a second before it turns around and goes into... I just love the way that's animated. Because you know the Dalek's going to say something. Because the look, it's like, you can't... I want to say the look on the Dalek's face, and of course that doesn't work. They don't have a face, but you could still tell what's going through its head. Like the Dalek stops, and you see the eye stalk turn and look, and nothing happens for a couple seconds. It just kind of watches him, and you can just see the Dalek over there going, what the... What? He's just looking at it like, wait, what? Before the body turns, and it's like, management has spotted you on your cell phone or something. The body turns, and it's like, what are you doing? And then right when he explains, that's my name. It was given to me by the doctor. And the Black Dome Dalek immediately like, come with me. We have to talk. I find that so hilarious. It's so unintentionally hilarious to me. I had such a ball with that. I also love the fact that the doctor realizes when they try to trick him into thinking one Dalek's Omega and he knows it's not. That's awesome. But I also thought it was adorable when the one Dalek's trying to get a couple of the human factor Daleks to move. And one Dalek's like, no, I will not follow orders. And the Black Dome Dalek shoots him and blows him up and kills him. And his friend kind of briefly hits him with this. It's so adorable. He kind of bumps him with his suction cup and realizes his friend got killed. It's a little thing, but it's so adorable. It's so human. It's such a human thing to do for these human factor Daleks. And immediately, the other two human factor Daleks blow up the Black Dome Dalek. I love that. I love that. And then I like the end of it. I hate... The main thing I hate is Kimmel's death, because it seems so unnecessary. It's like they didn't know what to do with Kimmel, so they just had to kill him off. Because they're like, well, we can't have him travel with the Tardis team. We can't get rid of him. We'll just have him killed off. And so he just gets killed off by the brainwashed mad professor character. He just, he loses his footing and falls off. I don't like that. It just feels like lazy writing. Like, well, we've got to get him out of the way somehow. We don't know what to do with him. We'll just kill him off this way. I hate the fact that it just seems like he was killed off for no reason. And I like the character. He was a pretty cool character. He really did a lot to help Victoria and Jamie, save Jamie's life after Jamie saved his. Honorable character. So I hate that his death was just... It honestly just felt like it was there because they didn't know what to do with the character and needed him. They just needed him not there at the end of the story when the TARDIS team leaves. So I felt like that was a little lazy. But other than that, I like the ending of the story with the Daleks blowing up for the most part. I love the Dalek Emperor and the battle scene between them. And even in animation is really good. And then the Doctor's speech about the final end and Victoria joining them. And I really like her dad. Her dad was a well-written character. You can tell he didn't like what was going on. And that he was very much coerced into what he was having to do. And how much it was just eating him alive. And how he kind of got to redeem himself, saving the Doctor's life. He's just a well-written character. And in the surviving episode, well-performed. And even in the animations, going by his audio, how he does his lines, just well-performed. I really liked him. So I like Evil of the Daleks. David Whitaker understands the Daleks. It's such a good Dalek story. I had a lot of fun with this watch. And I really want to thank my patrons and YouTube members for voting on it, because it was a really fun chance to experience this story. And this was probably my favorite viewing experience of this story. I've seen it, I know, once in color before, once in black and white before. This is probably my third time watching. I can't remember if I watched the reconstruction or not. So third or fourth time watching it. And this was probably my favorite watch through of it. I really, really enjoyed it. So evil, or I should say the evil of the Daleks. What do you think of it? Comment down below and let me know. Do you prefer the recon? Do you prefer it in black and white? Do you prefer the animation in color? Let's talk about it. Don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button as well. I also have a Patreon if you would like to support me on that. I also have a link to my Amazon wishlist down there, a link to my Amazon UK wishlist down there. I want to give a shout out to some of my top tier patrons, Colin Coney, Sam Venning, and Unknown289. I appreciate their support, as I do the support of all of my patrons and my YouTube members. It's very much appreciated. I have a P.O. box down there as well. If there's anything you'd like to send me to look at and review, most importantly, thank you for watching.